and are just some of the words that you may hear in today's podcast. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to the Perfect Information Podcast, a board game podcast fashioned out of starlight with me, Yorgos Panagiotidis, and the war to end all wars,
Ben Maddox. Here we are again, Georgie.
Hello, Benjamin. I see the assassins have failed.
Well, they tried, but you hired a group of your son's mates.
I thought it would be clever because you wouldn't expect toddlers to throw spears at you.
Yeah, but they were very small spears that they'd made out of plastic forks, Georgios. So they hit me. I mean, every one of them hit me.
Well,
and they went, oh, you're a poo face. And they threw these plastic... And they just didn't stick in the skin because they're toddlers.
Yes, but the problem is you missed the point. The poo phase was the attack. This is going to gnaw at you for the rest of your life.
So
you won't be able to sleep because, even toddlers notice that you're a poo face.
So you see one day in the future when I'm lay on my deathbed in my deliria from the onset of death, and I was going, I'm not a poo face. I'm not a poo face.
So what's the topic this week?
So we're talking about longevity, Georgios. The longevity of games.
Yes, we are.
And not like the hobby, how long the hobby's going to last, will it rise, will it fall, but sort of specific games, sort of what makes a game live long? Do games live long? Or are we just fleety little birds who nibble a little bit at this bit of bread and then this bit of wax fat and then this little bit of fruity wooty?
Yeah, I was thinking about this back then. Long time ago, when we talked about the topic. I was standing in front of my collection, looking at my games, realizing that some of them will probably get played tonight and some won't. In a moment of morbid curiosity, I wondered, do I have a game in my collection that I will never play again? Is there already a game in my collection that, unless I, put the effort into playing every game I own at least once this year or whenever, do I have a game that I will just never play again? I mean, I used to have a few games in my collection that I've traded away, and I don't see myself getting them back at some point. I used to have a copy of Libertalia that I traded away. I thought the game was fine. It just never saw play, so I traded away for something else. I doubt I will get to play this game again. There's so many games that I know you own a copy, but we don't play games together often enough that it would be likely that I would sit down to play a game of Libertalia with you. So that might be a game I will never play again. And
I'm determined to make sure that statement has been falsified.
Fair enough. But it comes down to the fact that there are games in my collection that I haven't played in a long time that I want to get rid of, but that I don't know if I will ever play again.
Well, let's talk about longevity. So when you say longevity, what do you mean? Does longevity mean that the game gets played, maybe not often, maybe once a year, but it constantly comes into rotation? Or do you think longevity means a game that is constantly being played once a month, once every 2 months? And I guess people, non-hobbyists would think once every 2 months, that's almost never. But I mean, amongst people who play a lot of games, that's fairly regularly, right? Especially for older games. Do you think longevity means that you constantly want to play it and want to get to the table, or it just has special moments where you think, okay, now it's perfect, and you haven't played it for 3 years or whatever?
Right, yeah. I think the idea of every game having a certain number of plays buried within it. So if you take a step out of our linear time and just look at all the time you're going to spend within this hobby, every game you have has a finite number of times it's going to get played.
Well, I mean, that's, of course, because you're going to die at some point.
Yeah, sure. Well, you maybe. I just wonder about this idea. How many plays does a game hold? And what's the threshold where we go, all right, this is a game that has longevity because it has a certain number of plays in it. And this game has no longevity because it doesn't have enough plays in it. At some point, I'm going to get sick of it, or it just, nobody will want to play it. Or with the legacy games, there are just a finite number of times you can even play the game itself. Is there a breaking off point? How do we judge when that breaking off point is? I mean, I have like a copy of Twilight Imperium I always bring up in almost every conversation because why shouldn't I? I've played it 4 times. I might play it 4 more times before I for some whatever reason I might get rid of it because my gaming group falls apart and I don't see myself then putting together a new gaming group that would be willing to spend the amount of time it takes to play Twilight Imperium. Am I okay with having played this huge game 8 times in total? Or do I go, no, that's not enough?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? I think I have this idea that engaging simplicity is the death knell for a game.
Ah, yeah, okay, I can see that.
Because Machikoro is the example I always use.
Right.
I will never play Machikoro again. The reason I will never play Machikoro again is because I fucking hate it. I hate it. I hate it from its bottom to its top. It makes me want to fucking burn it every time I see a copy of it. But it wasn't always thus. I bought Machikoro. A lot of people were talking about it, and I bought it. And I played the hell out of that game for a while. And this is what I mean by engaging simplicity. There are games that I've played a lot of that I could envisage playing again, that I just need a break from. Something like The Resistance. When I first got The Resistance Avalon, I played it and played it and played it because it's really engaging, but I don't think it's simple in that sense. There are other reasons why it makes it a more complex game, whereas Machikoro, I just found, for the first 5 or 6 plays, really interesting and fun, but then I just realize that there's nothing there. And so it engaged me. And through that simple interaction with the game made me hate it.
Right, yeah.
And so because if something it's like shitty food, right? You want to eat it, you want to get it down. And you think, oh, lovely Chinese food, but it gives you nothing. It's not nourishing. And after a while, you start...
Like fast food, like the kind of you get at the corner shop somewhere, like really quickly.
Right, exactly. Right, and it's not nourishing, it's not valuable. And you grow to resent it. And that is what has happened with me with Machikoro. It just doesn't have any depth. And so although it engaged me initially, what has killed it for me is that engagement with none of that complexity. So engaging simplicity, I think, is a death knell for games.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, this lack of depth, this idea of I've seen everything the game has to offer and there's nothing new to explore. There's nothing new to discover when I play this game. I haven't felt that way about Machikoro specifically, but I have felt that way about, interestingly enough, a few other games. It's going to sound mean. It's not meant to be mean or even crapping on this game. I felt that way about Scythe. I thought I played a couple of times. There were things I liked, there were things I didn't like, but I have no strong desire to play it again because I do not expect to discover a new facet of the game that I haven't already seen. So to me, Scythe is sort of not played out sounds very negative, but it's sort of, I've gotten everything out of it that I feel I can get out of in a reasonable amount of time. And there are a lot of other games that I haven't sort of scooped up yet, that I haven't really discovered fully. And I found one of the reasons, for example, I really like Flamme Rouge, is that even though it is simple, I feel that as you play the game, the complexity doesn't stem from managing the systems that the game is built upon. It's not, the hand management that's so complicated or so multi-layered that you have to move around. And it's the decision of other players that provide the complex decisions that you have to engage in. And I find this far more appealing. Even though the game itself is very simple, like rules-wise, it's really straightforward. It's other people's decisions, other people's behavior, other people's willingness to take risks or not to take risks, and sometimes how lucky they are on the card draws that provides you with new challenges. And I find that very engaging. It's the reason why I also find Cosmic Encounter fantastic for that. It's a game that I love going back to. I don't need to play it again and again and again, but I love going back to Cosmic Encounter, just randomly picking up new aliens, seeing what happens. Because I always feel that when I sit down to play Cosmic Encounter, there's something new for me to discover, some clever moment, some clever interaction that's going to happen.
Well, I think there's sort of two sort of rubrics for longevity that I see. There's the games in which you constantly have new things to discover. So you're being constantly surprised by what the game gives back to you when you play it.
Yeah.
And that encourages you to want to play that over longer periods of time. Or there's the kind of games, and I think traditional card games often fall into this, that the simple act of playing the game is just so pleasant.
All right, okay.
That you constantly want to play it and you'll always come back to it, even though you kind of know what you're doing. And especially if you play it with a regular group, you go through the same motions every time, but it's so familiar, it's so comfortable, and it's so enjoyable. It's such a great way to spend an hour that you'll keep coming back to it because it's just thoroughly pleasant, like watching fucking Star Wars 100 times, you know?
Right, yeah. Why do you think you don't feel that way about Machikoro? Because I remember playing the game. While I don't resent it in any way, I quite like it. I find it quite pleasant. I find the idea of rolling dice and just basically gambling quite amusing, entertaining. And it's simple enough, like in a card game most of the time, that you can just, start chatting about other things. It's like, you just do something on the side. You don't need to really think about too long about which card you're going to buy because it's obvious. Well, not obvious, but if you've played a bunch of times, you sort of know the paths you can take to try to win. Why do you feel that Machikoro isn't that pleasant experience, that simple experience where you can sort of enjoy just rolling the dice and just, just gambling, but card games are?
Well, there's something fundamentally I find gambling dull. This is just this is a personal thing.
Right.
I don't understand it. And especially gambling without money seems to me utterly futile. I mean, the tension from gambling comes from money, but I don't think Machikoro is it's not a perfect analog that it's gambling in the same way that poker is gambling.
Oh, yeah.
Betting on the horses is gambling.
Right.
What I found is that there was a field full of produce and I ploughed the field very, very quickly and I removed all the produce, and after that I was just turning over soil and it was dull and sterile. You get a load of cornfields or you get a load of markets or whatever, and then you roll, you hit those, you get loads, blah 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 blah, you win. There's something with these traditional card games, things like Hearts, things like Shithead we used to play when I was at college, is even though they're familiar and you're going over the same thing, the structure is so robust that it does often legislate for something different to happen. Whereas in Machikoro, the thing is, because you'll never get the same play of cards out in the same way in Machikoro, you go, okay, I'll just take the market.
Well, yeah.
You're doing the same thing. Even when you're playing card games, you're not doing the same thing. You're just facilitating the same rule.
Well, interestingly enough, in the German variant at least, there's a German edition of the base game. There's a variant in it that is part of the first expansion in the American version, which is basically you have a more or less slightly randomized setup of cards, which makes it a bit more about risk taking. But that's trivia.
And I find that insufferably dull.
Really?
But the thing is, I think I'd grown to hate the game by that point, so it was kind of past the point of no return. But I find it insufferably dull.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I just don't enjoy it. I find I played it out very quickly because it's such a simple system.
So going back to my earlier observation about games having a certain number of plays sort of in them for you, what do you think? Imagine you could roughly estimate how many plays you have in a game. You can see in a box, you can see, right, I know my gaming group, I know the kind of people I could play this with, I know how often I might play this with them. How many plays do you feel are sufficient for you to go, right, this is a game I want to own?
The number of plays is sufficient to the game. There's no number.
Not general number, but sure,
if you look at Twilight Imperium, right, I'm sure part of the reason you own it is partly predicated on previous experience.
Right.
You look at the box and you get that sort of recollection of previous plays.
Right.
But also you don't feel the need to play it every week. You wouldn't want to play it every week, I guess.
I'm not sure. I might, if I could pull it off. Well, this is the tangent. I don't want to break your argument. Just a quick tangent. Twilight Imperium is the kind of game where Twilight Imperium is the type of game you don't play itself, but you invite friends over to spend 8 hours with. It's why I've been very, very hesitant on who to pick to play Twilight Imperium with, because I want it to be people I want to spend 8 hours with, and I want them to be people who would enjoy the kind of game. There's a small handful I would love to play Twilight Imperium with, and if I had the time, I would actually try to play it more than once a year.
Right. I mean, obviously, but the thing is, my point as well, the reason you don't want to sell Twilight Imperium is not just because of nostalgia. It's not just because you have some sort of, if you sold it, you feel like you'd be betraying the game in some way, which is irrational as fuck, but everyone feels it, especially. We have this strange attachment to inanimate objects.
There's still at least one play in there before I give it away.
But you see this potentiality there, and I mean, that's the thing. There are still plays in that box, and it's going to work when you do. So why get rid of it? The thing is, I think the number of plays is when you look at it and you think, I'm fucking done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, what tends to happen, I find with me, is I'll play a game and I'll get it when it's new. And because when it's new, you feel like you want to get your money's worth. So you'll play it often, right? And you'll play it out, and then you'll boom, 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 and the last play you have of it for a while will still be great. Mm-hmm. Then you'll leave it for a few months. Mm-hmm. And you have this thing, oh, this game's great. And then you get it out again and you play it again and you think, I know I haven't played this for a few months. There was something in my hindbrain that told me, that's it, I'm done with this.
Right.
Because that subsequent play after that many months is not good. Mm-hmm. Is just there's something that we can't consciously process that tells us, I think, we're done with this now.
Right.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But we're done. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the thing is, I do have this feeling that I don't want to betray
I totally
the
get
games.
That. Yeah.
So even if I feel like I'm done with them, I won't sell them. Because there's still that potentiality there, yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I think I'm at this point where I think we talked about when we talked about size of collections, where there's some games that I feel done with as well, that I have no desire to play, but I'm kind of keeping them around in case my game group is really really wants to play them that night, or I keep them because my girlfriend says, oh, I like this game, let's play this at some point. We haven't in years, but she says that occasionally. So these games are stuck around, even though I don't really want to play them. But also some of those games I'm willing to just trade away and get games that I think I can still play. There's still plays in them.
I mean, something like, Through the Ages is a great example, right? For me. I played it a lot when I eventually got the rule book. I played it a lot, and then I thought, this is a game that I only play play irregularly. But now, and then some of these games have gluts. So I played it loads through the ages. Didn't play it for ages. And the pun wasn't intentional, and you shouldn't repeat words when you speak. It makes you sound like an idiot.
It's not much of a pun if you repeat words, isn't it?
That's right. I didn't even know what a pun is, Georgios.
It's sort of like a gun, but with words.
All right. Or a gun made out of paper.
A spoken gun, yeah.
Yeah. And then, over the last few weeks, I've played it like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
There are some games that just you get the mood for. And I don't think I'll ever get tired of Through the Ages. Through the Ages is not a game I'm going to sell unless they come out with a 3rd edition, and then I'll probably, get that. Right. And these big event games, I think they have that character. That you go blam 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 blam, nothing blam 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 blam, and
it's the gun metaphor again, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. But I guess fundamentally it's down to personal preference. What kind of things fire your cannon and what things will come back to you.
Sure.
And again, engaging simplicity is the death knell for a game. Love Letter is a game, again, that I haven't played for ages because I killed it when I played it. And I don't know, maybe there is this kind of number of plays that are built into every game, like the human heart has a set number of beats, and once they're gone and you're dead,
No. Just like, the human body does not have a finite amount of energy and you get rid of it when you exercise, as somebody said. No, I don't. It's slightly tongue-in-cheek, the idea of putting a number to the number of plays. It's just a way of sort of grasping the idea of a game eventually being over. Not just, the play itself, but the game at some point, like you said, you're done with it. At some point, a game is over. You will never play it again. You don't want to play it again. You keep it because out of laziness or out of nostalgia, or because you feel it's weird to get rid of a game that used to be so much fun. Like, as you said, like betraying a game that used to be so great, but now you just don't play it. But I'm sort of reminded of books as well. I mean, I have maybe 120 books or so. That's so not that many, I think. Maybe there are many, I don't know. I've read most of them once, some of them twice, tiny handful more than twice, but I don't feel like I need to get rid of the books.
But that's a social convention, is it? You have a book, you put it on a shelf. It's as much of a display piece of your intellect as it is of a utilitarian object.
No, but maybe that's true of games as well, to a smaller degree.
This is the point, isn't it? I think you have this angst about games because games we've talked about this before, there's something that you actively engage with, and if you're not actively engaging with them, they seem like a huge millstone around your neck in the way books don't. Because books are meant to... Books display the history of the reader as much as anything, in a way that games don't, because games are immediate and active and to be engaged with.
I don't know if they. Yeah, I think games don't so much display the history of the reader, but the taste of the player. Much like, you know, your DVD collection displays not necessarily your history, unless of course you have some very, very old bad movies in them, but more like your preferences. And I feel, because now that you mention it, Twilight Imperium very much is a game that I have there to sort of display, you know, I like these smaller games, I like these quick games, I like heavier games, I have a bunch of those, and I like this big monstrosity as well.
Well, this is the thing. People always talk about, how do I display my games? Do I display them by color? Do I display them by box size? Wouldn't it be great to display your games by gamer phase? These were the games I first bought. Then I went on and I bought these, and I went through this period.
Autobiographical, right?
Yes, you have an autobiographical games collection, and it comes, and that can be chronological, but it needn't be chronological. It could be where you engage with games now. So these are the games I play, and then you have this whole section of, these are the ones that will always come out. Maybe it's only once every 6 months, but they're always going to get played.
I think the way I've arranged my games on my shelf is very much about games I really want to play, games I don't want to play, and games I want people to see. This sounds really, really awful, but the way some games I just want to have them, like Twilight Imperium, I want to have it displayed so people know this is a game I have, this is a game I like because it's visible. If you're interested, ask me about the game, and I'd love to tell you the long, long stories. But I have a few games I don't like to play. Celtis is one of them. It's a Knizia game that I was given as a gift. I think of all the games I have, this is the only one I actually hate because I find it unbearably dull. I just don't like it. We sort of made it a tradition to play this game once a year. A tradition that we haven't held up for the last 2 years, but one of the players keeps going like, we could always play Celtis. And I'm very heartbroken when, we're not 4 players. Unfortunately, it's best at 4 players. So this is a game I've literally buried away somewhere where people don't see it.
But okay, I want to come back to where this number of plays lies,
right, yeah,
and what this rubric is. Is it financial? Or because people talk about this a lot, right? They talk about, I buy this game and I play it this many times, which averages out at this much per play. Therefore, I've got my money's worth. But I think all of that is bullshit. I think people are trying to quantify something. And the reason people always use money to quantify things is because numbers are intrinsically quantifiable, right? So you can...
Well, there's that, and also we are fucked up capitalist society.
Also that. But the reason you have numbers is because you can quantify them. You can put them in a graph. You can say this correlates to this. It's very quantifiable. If you look at GDP, is a terrible way to determine how successful a country is.
Yeah.
But it's much easier to quantify than general well-being. I mean, how the fuck do you do it? Until we found a way to quantify that, GDP will always be used, right? So I think all of these people who are saying, you know, and I play this and I've worked out now that actually per play, if you look at 4 players, it only costs me £1. So actually I've got my money's worth. But I think I think it's a lie. It's a lie, right?
I don't know if I go that far, but I do think it's an attempt. It's a crude attempt, and it's a clumsy attempt to articulate something, to make something tangible that a lot of people have struggled with articulating. And that is basically, when do you feel disappointed in a game and why? It's the same reason why so many reviewers rely on some sort of vague rating system, number system, or gesture system, because it's difficult and it's hard to say in words, to communicate in a difficult way how you feel about the game, how you play a game, you analyze it, and the reasons why it works or it doesn't work, why it's good or why it's bad. They are difficult to put into words. It's much easier to just slap a number on it. I mean, which is not, I'm not trying to say that this is sort of, putting it into numbers is some sort of, a cop out. I think, but it is a, let's say, seductive way to make something simple that is actually very, very hard. And I think the same goes with trying to put a number on it. You're trying to say, when is a game over? Why is it over? How can I know if it's over? When will I be disappointed? And when am I fine with the game being over?
So,
So you put a number on it.
People are trying to put into words or put into graphs or put into figures, put into something we can see.
Yeah.
This idea of plays to a game, when I'm disappointed at how many plays I get out of it, all of this sort of stuff.
Right.
Do you think we have an instinct about these things? We can look at a game and go, no, I'm done with that, I think. And it's something that is correct, but impossible to explain. Do you think that's right, or do you think that's mystically bullshit?
I think it turns something real into something mythical. Yes. I think the idea that, well, there's separate thoughts. First of all, I think that instinct in many cases is subconscious thought trying to make itself known. It's not, your gut feeling is not always just random bullshit. It's experience. It's something that you can't quite articulate running in the back of your head and trying to nudge you towards what you think you should do. That's, I think, what instinct comes down to. So instinct can be trained, can be refined, can be made better.
Do you think we live in a society that underrates instinct?
I think we live in a society that overrates intellect. I think the idea that, as you said, because we put something into numbers, it's somehow worth more than something that you can't quite articulate or that you have trouble articulating.
If we can demonstrate something on paper, it has worth. If we can't, it doesn't.
Yeah, basically. I think the idea that a game is, like I said, a game's worth can be measured in money. A game's how much positive influence it's going to have on your relationship with your friends.
Well, I mean,
how do you measure that?
It seems, I mean, a lot of people use money, but they don't just use money, do they? They use an equation which includes money and time, which comes out at a figure, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually a financial figure because often people see a game collection and they go, fuck me, mate, how much money have you spent on that? And the fact is...
Well, I've stolen all my games, so...
Well, that's true. And the fact is, the guy who's thinking that, he doesn't, store all his urine in a bucket. So you can't then walk up to him and go, have you seen how much you spend on fucking beer, mate? And that's pissed in a bucket. That's in a bucket there, right? But because we stamp a financial value onto all of these things. But I think time might be a useful rubric.
Right, yeah.
Because I guess there are many ways to quantify a well-spent life, right?
Oh yeah, but there's a game about that.
But filling your time, there is. Yeah. But filling your time in a way that you consider to have been valuable must therefore be, it must be an indicator of a life well spent.
Yeah.
You can say political achievement, you can say money accrued, you can say lives saved, but I think if you
how many women cry at your funeral? That's my rubric, yeah.
But I think if you have this idea that time well spent, time spent doing something you consider valuable,
right,
can have some equation at the end of your life, then I guess what the value of a game is and how many plays it has comes from how well you considered your time spent playing that.
Exactly.
Game,
no, that's very, very nicely put, and I agree with it 100%. The idea, because that is why I'm so invested into the experience that games create, and not so much into all the other aspects that games are evaluated on. I don't care about the rules. I don't care how intricate they are.
Well, I think if you boil it down to it, it's all about experience, fundamentally.
It is about experience, yeah.
But it's your perspective on what generates that experience.
Yeah.
So some people say it's over the table stuff. Some people say it's the combination of rules. Yeah. Some people say it's how elegant it is. But it's all about fundamentally.
Yeah, it all funnels into what the experience is like.
What does it give me?
Exactly. And what I like measuring is how, it's very stupid in a way, but how do I feel towards the friends I played with? Do I feel closer to them? Do I feel like we spent time together? We had fun together. We enjoyed the time together. Or do I feel like that was kind of awkward? That was annoying. I was mad at other players more often than I enjoyed them being here. So this has basically been one of the running thread through every semi-critical look I had at a game. How did it make me feel about spending time with these people? And if I enjoyed the time, I think there's value to this game. And I don't care if it's complex, if it's light, if it's short, if it's long. It doesn't matter to me. Did I enjoy the time I spent with these people? And if the answer is yes, then it's good. And then I am confident that this game has more plays in it. But the moment where I sit down and play a game, even that one that I loved, and I realize afterwards I didn't enjoy spending time with these people. The things we did while we played the game, they were not helping us.
Or we became diverted and we didn't play the game. So the time spent wasn't intrinsic to
but
the
that
game.
hasn't often happened in my experience. It's a small handful of times where this actually happened. And in some cases, I think it was intentional and part of the game. Some, like one of these typical, family type, party type games, like what are they called? Therapy, or even, it's not even something like Concept, where you play it, you don't care about the points, you like the activity so much. And then I've often seen it sort of more or less seamlessly move into just talking about things.
But sometimes you do play a game, and you play it to its completion, but you're much more attracted by the conversation over the table than you are in the game.
Right.
And also, that's not because you ate something and you've got indigestion, or you're a bit hungover, or you're a bit drunk. It sometimes is just the game doesn't give you enough, even though it may have done previously. So, last question to wrap this up. Do you have a game?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for listening. Do you have a game that you know you'll never play again, but you still keep, and why?
Well, it's the classic time traveler's dilemma. If you came from the future and you tell yourself you will never do this, are you going to start doing it on just, to spite yourself, or just going to give up and go, yeah, I'll never do that?
That's what I drink, Georgios.
Right.
Because, I get diarrhea, and I get, my eyes start going and my body feels physically terrible. And I go, oh, fuck you then. If that's how you're going to react, I'm going to do it more.
I'm not sure we're talking about the same thing, but good to know. So
I call it the time traveler's dilemma. It's my little nickname for having the squits, Georgios.
There you go.
Sorry, can't come and speak to you today. Time traveler's dilemma. Know what I mean?
So what I'm trying to say is maybe there is a game that I didn't think about ever playing again and would have forgotten about. But now that I'm thinking about not playing it again, I kind of want to. But the game that I feel is most likely to not get played in the foreseeable future, and that I feel very hesitant to just get rid of, is Game of Thrones. Interestingly enough, I think part of it is because of the history I have with the game, of how I sort of stumbled on it, how I got it, how I, the first couple of games, not because of what they were like, but just, the history surrounding how these games came together, how much time I spent trying to fix the things I didn't like about the game that I haven't. Then I remember that at some point I realized every game I've played of Game of Thrones was 2/3 fun and 1/3 really aggravatingly frustrating and annoying. And
so why would you want to keep this? I mean, because that 1/3 must dominate the whole experience, right?
I don't know if it dominates. It's the idea of the potentiality of this game.
That one day you might play it and it'll be good.
No, yes, in a way, but one day I'll come at it with fresh eyes, and another group, maybe different players with fresh eyes, and I will make it work. It will not be frustrating, but it will be a tension that we enjoy as opposed to a tension that drives us away, which is what my fundamental dislike of diplomacy is now documented. But, and Game of Thrones is very much direct descendant from diplomacy. I think a lot of this, it's the sins of its father carried over in some sense. And the things I don't like about Game of Thrones is basically that it always ends up with people having to make each other really mad.
Well, this is the point I think with diplomacy, and what people say is, oh, well, you have to betray at some point.
Yeah, the reputation is the worst thing about
That's not
diplomacy.
necessarily true. Mm-hmm. You can, to be fair, I've never played a game of it in which someone doesn't betray at the end to go for their own selfish goals, but I think it's a wonderful sociological experiment. With Game of Thrones, you have to betray. This idea that you can only have one winner, that results in it. That's mandatory betrayal, and you just have to, it's going to come, and it feels a little scripted, right?
Not just a little. The problem. All right, quick tangent. The problem with Game of Thrones is that the opening moves are a bit scripted once you know what happens, how the game plays out. But there are expansions to deal with that. But then, as you said, the ending is scripted as well. You just don't know when the shoe is going to drop, and that's not. And the problem I have with this is that it's not an enjoyable tension because it's inevitable. It would be enjoyable if it was down to player choice. If your way of dealing with other people, of striking deals with other people, would actually affect whether you get betrayed or not, that would be fantastic.
Right.
But it doesn't. The game tells you,
You got to do it.
You got to do it. No, it sort of gets excused away by the way of theme and these shitty quotes from the here come the flamestorm. Shitty books. I literally only read the books so the game would be more fun to me, and it worked. I don't like the books, but I like playing the game. I remember liking the game and recognizing the places and having sort of I have an image of what it is. But yeah, these games this is a game that I feel won't get played because I don't want to sort of put my friends into the situation of effectively, being really pissed off at one another. It never worked for me in a way that I thought, right, this is engaging, this is fun, this is tense in a way that sort of elevates the mood as opposed to just really bringing everyone down.
I mean, for me, the one, I won't play it again, much as that sort of hurts me a little bit. But if I get rid of my collection, it'll be the one thing that I keep, probably.
Right.
And that's the first game I bought.
Oh, nice.
And so it's purely on nostalgic purposes, and that's Pandemic.
Oh, but are you telling me that you're not going to play Pandemic again?
Certainly not that copy of Pandemic. No, I don't think I am. I think I'm done with Pandemic.
Really?
I love, but I will play the legacy games, no question.
Right.
But the sort of vanilla Pandemic, no, I don't. I think I'm done. I think, and this is not because I think the game is played out. It's just, I look at my collection and I look at it every time and no, it just won't get played, and it won't. But I think Pandemic is one of the greatest games ever made. Mm-hmm. I think it is designed beautifully. And I have had so many wonderful times playing it that actually maybe the only time it'll ever get played again is if I do get rid of my whole collection and I keep that out of pure nostalgic value. Right. And I want to play something and it's the only game I have.
Personally, I think Pandemic is a fantastic game to introduce non-gamers to games that don't feel like childhood games, in the sense of most of us, at least at our age, probably a little older, definitely a little younger maybe as well. Most of us know games as this competitive pursuit where you butt heads, where get mad at your sister or mad at your uncle or whoever for whatever they did to you. They kicked your figure off the board, they bought your hotel, whatever. And this is a game that's very much, to me, this is basically, a great game to play with people who don't know the depth of the hobby.
It's the classic epiphany game, right?
Right, yeah.
You play it and you go, wow, I didn't realize these things could do this.
Yes, exactly.
Pandemic does that. Whenever you play it, you go, bloody hell, every time.
Yeah.
And I think even if that doesn't inspire you to then go on to be a gamer, you still, I think I defy anyone to have that, to not have that reaction if they come into gaming, without having played games.
Right. Yeah. I think it does open up an understanding of what is possible within. It doesn't light up every possibility of game
experience. It suggests to you that this is an industry, an art form that is not just snakes and ladders.
Yeah, exactly.
And that it's something surprising and interesting and has value in a way that you wouldn't have assumed it to have before because it's Monopoly that you think about, right?
I really want to play Pandemic again. I really do. I don't want to play Game of Thrones again necessarily because I wouldn't know who to play it with. But I really want to play Pandemic now.
Well, maybe you'll fuck up the entire last 3 minutes of what I was fucking talking about and we'll play fucking Pandemic again at some point.
All right.
Thanks, Georgios. Oh, what a surprise. Lovely to see you here. Well, come on in. Welcome to my home, or as I like to call it, the Guild. Ooh, Georgios.
Yes, you're awake.
First time you've been round here, isn't it?
Yes, it's much cleaner than I expected.
Well, that's the influence of Janine, obviously.
Okay.
I'm slovenly in the extreme.
I assume so, yes.
But, I'm almost better after my detourification, but I just need a bit of time to lie in my bed, Georgios. Read The Socialist Worker.
Why would you do that?
And, massage the picture of Corbynio that I've got at the foot of my bed. Touch him on the nose.
No.
I made a papier-mâché sculpture of Jeremy Corbyn, but touch him on the nose.
No.
Touch him on the nose. He makes farty noises if you touch him on the nose, Georgios.
Really? Old man farting. Not what I would expect in your game, in your groom.
My groom.
Your groom, yeah.
My groomsman. That's a very strange name to call Janine. She's a woman.
No, actually, I called it your room. It's sort of a portmanteau of groin and room because it's your room and it smells like your groin.
I'm rather annoyed that you drew attention to my groin issues, Georgios. As everyone knows, with detourification, the groin is the last part to be fixed, to drain.
Well, or to fill.
I have to drain blue liquid out of my testiculae every 3 hours, Georgios. And when the liquid runs clear, then I know I'm done.
I'm starting to realize why people stop listening to a podcast now.
Why? Because they're too eroticized by the talk of my testicles, Georgios.
Yes, it is definitely the talk of testicles, but I'm not sure about the consequences.
The mental picture of my balls, Georgios, might be the sexiest thing that man has ever conceived about.
I don't...
Sorry about that, Georgios. My stomach is giving me terrible jip.
It should. Let's do something productive. Let's talk about the guild.
Yeah, I need to draw myself out of this funk. Being a convalescent, Georgios, is quite boring. I just do Sudoku and weep.
I think everyone over the age of 50 does that now in the UK.
I can't do Sudoku, Georgios.
So you just weep.
Little smiley faces I just put in the boxes.
Oh, there you go.
1 smiley, 2, 7 smiley with a tear. Winky winky 1.
Actually, if you blow it up big enough and just throw it onto a wall somewhere, you can become the new Banksy.
That's right. Absolutely. So anyway, Georgios, what was the questione this week?
The question this week was, can gaming help to bring our society together?
Well, that's suitably pompous, isn't it?
It is very pompous, yes.
So,
I could basically hear the trumpets.
What did Ender 7, Isaac Shalev, the kindest of all fortresses, what did he elucidate?
Ender 7. Is there like a group of people who end things and he's the 7th in line?
Yeah.
All right.
You can only end a sentence if you have an official ender that can put the full stop on it.
There you go. It's amazing. So many things I haven't never.
Well, just lying in bed all day, George, just while your missus is at the gentleman's club serving drinks. You read a lot of facts.
See, if you phrase it like this, it sounds awful.
What do you mean awful?
While your missus is serving drinks at the gentleman's club, that does sound awful.
Well, that's what she's doing. She's working, Georgios. And I can't go to work because I'm convalescing.
She's working at the gentleman's club.
As a fucking barmaid. What are you insinuating?
I'm not insinuating anything. I'm pointing out that what it sounds like.
That she's working at a gentleman's club serving drinks.
Isaac says, gaming by its nature asks people to step out of their normal life and into a magic circle. In that circle, we agree to lower the stakes of our interactions enormously in order to make possible all kinds of behaviors and dynamics that might otherwise be a problem, which I think is a very interesting point to make, especially the idea of how we lower the stakes so we can engage in the game itself, asking us to behave in a way that we otherwise wouldn't.
Well, he goes on to say, doesn't he, make war, lie, betray, colonize, exploit, compete, and all of these sorts of things that you may consider antisocial behavior.
Well,
especially sort of conscious lying to people is something you attempt not to do in life, but in games is not just tacitly accepted, is part of the game mechanism at times, right?
At times, yeah. I think you could probably fill an entire hour talking about when is lying okay and when it isn't, and to what extent, what kind of lies are you allowed to tell. But yeah, generally, I think that's a very, very, very astute observation that we lower the stakes, that we don't put as much into the consequence and the meaning of our actions because it is part of the game. And going from there, I would imagine a certain hesitance to introduce things that are actually high stakes, that are actually very meaningful, very consequential in where we fall down on this question.
To invade the game state where the stakes are low with things that are high, like real bloody life, right?
Exactly, like important issues, yeah.
Like the fact that I'm going to be deported from my home in the next year and a half because the English government are rank idiots, Georgios.
That is true. I mean, the last part, I'm not sure about deported. I think the German government is probably...
Well, asked to leave. Politely asked to leave,
you probably have enough things racked up already in your files that they are...
Yeah, that's the bloody problem, Georgios. They don't look at my files usually. This is going to make them look at my bloody files.
That is true. That is a problem.
But the thing is, it's really interesting that they say that games are an analog for war, right? In a peaceful society...
Who says that?
Some Roman fella, I think.
Fuck him.
No, he's right, though.
No, he isn't.
In a society that's peaceful, in which you don't have a sort of outlet for your aggression, this idea that we're this serene thing that floats above the animal kingdom is a very dangerous fallacy that we've held so many times. The dualism that religion asks us to believe in is very, very dangerous, because we need to understand that we are animals and we are prey to the kind of things that affect animals. And they say that games are an analogue for war in times of peace. And what they allow us to do by lowering those stakes and saying we have an arena in which we can play, we can be competitive. We can solely focus on bettering our own situation in this particular context. And I think that's really valuable. In the same way that when I watch football for an hour and a half, I can take nuance out of my thought. I can say these 11 guys are fucking great and these 11 guys are fucking dickheads. And when the whistle blows at the end of the game, nuance floods back into my life. But for those 90 minutes, nuance is gone. And to have a break of nuance, or to be able to be self-regarding and selfish within a certain context, I think is very valuable.
I'm sorry, I fundamentally disagree with everything you just said.
Well, come on then.
No, I don't think it matches my experience at all. And I don't agree with the idea that games are an analog for war. And I agree with the idea that there's some sort of inherent need to vent aggression and anger and all these kind of things. I'm not saying that these things do not exist. I'm not saying that these things don't need to be addressed. And I'm not saying all these things need to be repressed either.
But you don't think it's fun? You don't think it's fun to let fly those sort of negative things within a controlled area where you can be a bit of a dickhead, but it's accepted within this? And I don't mean socially, I don't mean calling you a twat or fucking pulling your nose hair, but making this particular move that is solely beneficial to you and screws over the rest of the table can be quite liberating, no?
I think you can take a certain enjoyment out of it, and I certainly do in some cases, but I don't agree with the general, with the overarching argument you made that this is necessary, this is inherently valuable. I think, yes, I think that games can provide these kind of small pleasures in a controlled environment. Yes. I don't think it's a particularly important aspect of what games provide. I think it's part of it, but I don't put a lot of value to that aspect of gaming.
If I were to say that we have within us an innate desire to compete, would you agree with that statement or no? Or would you say that's fatuous?
I don't think I would agree with it, no. I think...
Then why does competition play such an integral role to every human society that's ever existed, whether that be the greater theatre of war, or whether that be in every sort of, I mean, I'm not the greatest historian in the world, but you hear stories from every civilization from ancient to modern where games exist, where people are divided into teams and compete against each other. Mm-hmm. If that's not an integral sort of need for the human, then why is it a constant throughout all human society? And why is that a constant throughout the animal kingdom?
I think the idea of taking one aspect in a complex situation, breaking it down to a running thread through history, it's a very dangerous argument to make. Breaking games, breaking war, breaking arguments, breaking conversations in a way, breaking them all down to this one single aspect because it pops up again and again. I'm not sure I buy that argument. I'm not sure I would be willing to entertain this argument. I think, yes, competition exists. Competition and the desire to compete. Some people have the strong desire to compete, but I don't think that it's innate. I don't think it has to be somehow, not encouraged, but, taken care of and sort of given a place to expand upon itself. I also don't buy into this idea, that video games help get rid of your aggression, or heavy metal helps you get rid of your aggression.
Do you think we need to vent? Is that necessary, or is that just a myth?
I think...
Do you think anger begets anger, or do you think anger begets calm?
I think anger begets anger. I think that anger is, again, it has to do with whether you interact in an angry fashion or whether, you deal with anger on your own. If you interact in an angry fashion with somebody, you might feel calm for a moment, but that just means somebody else is really pissed off. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I do not believe in the scream therapy of the 70s where you put in people and they start screaming everything they hate about their life and then they're exhausted and they confuse this exhaustion with somehow feeling better about themselves.
But do you think transgression has an attraction?
Yes.
Do you think that lowering, and I'm probably changing the subject here, but lowering, as Isaac says, lowering the bar, lowering the bar on our moral obligation for the 45 minutes, 2 hours that it takes to play the game, allowing us to do things like lie, allowing us to dissemble, and allowing us to let free our desire for pure selfishness is attractive and fun, whether it's integral to the human spirit or not. Do you think that's fun? And does that fun have a value, or does that reinforce back and make us meaner people?
Yeah, I don't think that's actually not how I read the argument that Isaac made. Maybe this is where we're thinking in different direction. The way I understood Isaac, and he's very welcome, like in half a year when he listens to this episode, he's very welcome to point out that I'm completely wrong. But the way I understood it is that lowering the stakes, what he was trying to get at, and what I agree with, is that what is being done, the actions themselves, are acknowledged to be less meaningful, have little at stake, and not that we lower our stakes in ourselves and we do allow ourselves to do things that we otherwise wouldn't. And it's not in the sense
it's just the things we do don't mean as much.
Yeah, I think this is kind of I think that's a distinction worth making, because...
But it's transgression, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you play. So I think Resistance is a great example of this, right? There is for me, an unbridled joy in someone saying, "Are you this?" and me absolutely to their face testing my ability to barefaced lie at them.
Right.
To barefaced lie for only one reason, my own benefit.
Right.
That kind of transgression I find incredibly alluring. And games
I think,
offer us that ability to transgress, because I like to think of myself as a fairly moral individual. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty bloody close. And I wouldn't want to transgress in my everyday life in the same way as I wouldn't want to think those other 11 men are fucking assholes who deserve to be pummeled into the floor. But the confines of a game allows, for me, that transgression. And I don't think it's wild. It's a wild assertion to think that what appeals to me also appeals to a lot of other people.
Well, maybe not a lot, but I do agree. I definitely agree with you that this aspect appeals to people.
I think maybe a lot. I think maybe a majority.
I don't think so. But
that's not provable. Exactly. Unless we did a straw poll and there's only two of us here. Does it appeal to you?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it does to me. Well, 50-50. There we go. At least half.
Right. Interesting enough. No, but quite honestly, I don't feel that way about these aspects of playing Resistance. The tension comes from, for me, when I play this game, comes from being found out. Yes. But I think this is again where we differ. I don't see it as much of a transgression, because of the fact that these lies mean nothing. If these lies meant anything, I would feel that I'm transgressing something. I'm doing something I'm not supposed to.
Well, maybe you're just very mature, but no. I mean, the simple act of lying, we are conditioned in our society to see lying as transgressive, especially barefaced lying, not manipulating the truth, not considering other people's feelings, all of those sort of little white lies. The kind of lies you're encouraged to do in something like the Resistance is those lies with malice, aforethought, and the freedom that is given to be able to do that, I find incredibly attractive.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. It doesn't really match my experience. To me, I remember I took this course once on the nature of lies and how many sessions we spent just trying to pin down what a lie is and what isn't a lie. Does intent play a role? Does consequence play a role? Does factual, like the classic, is a lie of omission also a lie or not? Stuff like that. I don't know if it really comes back down to this course, but I never had these complicated relationships with the concept of saying something that is factually wrong. That's because I'm deeply immoral. To me, it's always been about effects. It's always been about the consequence. And if the consequence is meaningless, then the transgression is meaningless. Then it barely qualifies as a transgression.
So you were consequentialist, essentially?
I guess I am, yeah. Maybe I am not, I don't know, but maybe I am. I'm not sure.
Because I guess you can plausibly argue consequentialism on everything. Because you can always say, well, there is a consequence. And you could always say, lying where where it doesn't have an effect on the person being lied to, it doesn't have an effect on the society as a whole, is then fine. But does that then result on the lie having an effect on a person?
Yeah, no, definitely. But then again, I probably wouldn't agree with putting me in the consequentialist corner. But this is the main reason why I don't feel that there's a transgression to lie in a game of Resistance. But once you add additional layers to it, like personal history between players, the way you do sell your lie, the things you draw upon on the shared history, basically if you're skilled enough, the small facial tics, the small gestures with which you kind of beg for somebody else to trust you because they know you so well. This is where things get muddy. This is where where people get mad during games of Resistance because they've been tricked by you drawing upon something that they feel is out of bounds. That's where it does get transgressive. And that's the reason why I'm fascinated by these games. I love playing them, and everybody says this. I'm not particularly good at them. I sometimes manage to trick people, but the better a person knows me, the worse I am playing against them.
Well, I think it's a general case, and we'll have to move on, but I think that's something worth exploring at a future date, because I think we fundamentally disagree on Platonic ideals.
Yes, which is funny because Platon, as we all know, was a merman.
That's right. That's right. He had one of those tridents that he ate lobster with. Very popular in those days.
Very popular.
So Jonathan Godfrey 1984.
Is that a reference to when Blade Runner came out?
That's right, yeah.
Oh, clever. Well, he says the following. I agree with Ivor. There seems to be a general acceptance that the conversation is about either the game itself or about easy topics, the weather or local news when playing board games. I think only in groups of games or friends that have known each other for a long time could you bring up political issues or ideals. And that's basically an expansion of what Isaac said as well, I think. The idea that lower stakes means certain controversial ideas are off limits.
Don't break the magic circle by bringing these things into it.
I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it seems to me there's a general vibe on the answers that we've got, is that there's a very good reason why board games won't bring us together socially, is because they're an abnegation of who we are socially and politically.
Oh, well, that's a strong statement. Well, I don't know about that. Well,
the desire is, I think it seems to me amongst the people on here, the desire is that you leave that shit at the door. Forget that identity of who you are. You come in, and when you enter this, you're a gamer. And we can talk about the games and we can talk about the weather, but the games are the focus. Therefore, don't bring your resentments and your anger and your depression, the fact you didn't get fucked and the fact that your political party has lost the election. That's not what we're here for. We're here for something purer and less consequential, but at the same time, very consequential, right?
I wouldn't.
Or am I reading too much into this?
Yes, I think you are. I think that's a very, what's the word? Unsympathetic reading of the dynamic. I think I
don't see that as unsympathetic. I see that as a realistic reflection. I'm not saying that's a negative thing.
Well, you're making it sound very negative.
Well, maybe it's just my tone of voice, love. But the point is, I think we want a break from all of these horrible, stressful things. And I think we live in an age which is unique, in which
every age is unique.
But I think this particular last couple of years is unique, in which...
Oh, you mean the last 100 days of the Trump presidency?
Well, the vacillations in politics and the decisions being made are actually having direct effects on people's psyche in a way that they haven't for the last 30 years, right? When people are discussing initiatives to reduce the interest rate, right?
Right.
Or going to fucking nuclear war with Korea, there's a different stake. And I think there's a reaction here from people saying, Brexit's important. I might lose my job. Trump being president's important. I may fucking lose my life or my liberty here. So I don't want to engage with this, and I don't want to know. And I especially don't want to know if you're one of them, because if you're one of them, then this is going to ruin my fucking night. Do you think? Or am I being massively dramatic?
I think you're over-dramatizing a little bit. I think it's less of a conscious decision to abnegate our social identities so much as the idea of this the game not being robust, the magic circle not being robust, stable enough to not completely fall apart the moment you bring something in that would overpower it. For example, imagine you're playing a light game of whatever it is, let's say pandemic, and then somebody talks about privatizing the NHS, which is the UK health service, which used to be state-run and is now...
It's still mostly state-run, but if Theresa May has her way, it'll be Virgin Media's Sky colostomy bags.
More or less, yeah. So it's a big issue in the UK, and arguably everywhere where sane people live. I think there's some truth to the argument that if you start playing Pandemic and all of a sudden you start arguing about how awful it is that Theresa May is trying to privatize the NHS, assuming you're based in the UK, outside of the UK might not be that much of a topic, you do wonder whether this will completely derail the experience that the game itself can bring, whether you're risking destroying something as opposed to adding to it. And I think that's a reasonable concern. I think I can understand why people want this, and I can understand why people are hesitant to introduce other things. And then there's also the very, very simple, pragmatic fact, if you're playing something, let's say, more complex than Pandemic, you're busy thinking about this stuff, which is part of the appeal of escapism of games. You're busy thinking about, how do I plot my next 2, 3, 4 moves? How do I plot the next 2 turns?
Well,
you don't want to think about, the complexities of healthcare for people.
I mean, this is something else, but I'm constantly surprised at how much people don't do that. Therefore, they have to spend the next 45 fucking minutes planning their fucking turn. But that's another subject. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and I wonder if it's a symptom of the age that we're so divided politically, and we see the other. So I see what Theresa May's plans are for the NHS, and I think it's not only wrong-headed, but I think it's deeply, deeply dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I wonder that if a symptom of our times is that we see someone who sits across the divide politically from us as so antithetical to who we are, that games will not bridge those cultural divides because they're just not consequential enough.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm not entirely sold on this idea that this is a sign of a times being so divided. I think what's coming to the front is is a division that's always been there, but has always been sort of plastered over by a lot of other things, by just, consumerist culture, by just things being reasonably stable for a great majority of people, at least in our circle. I mean, I don't know about the demographic that's listening to us, but in my circle, things have been very, very stable socially, politically for the last 20 years.
This is the point, isn't it? It has been. And in the Anglo-Saxon world now seemingly is tearing itself to pieces. Right. Whereas you have, I think back to the 90s with the Conservative Party, although the Conservative Party had aspects to their policy that I certainly didn't agree with, mm-hmm. there were certain things that were sacred. Right. You didn't touch the NHS.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm. And so now the NHS is this last sort of bastion of the welfare state, and it seems the Conservatives are trying to tear it down by any means necessary. This is unprecedented. Mm. They seem like they're trying... It's almost impossible not to be divided now, because it really feels like to me, and this might be it is a crude characterization, but it feels like to me that it's the fucking rebels against the empire, right? And they're seeking to destroy us for ideological reasons, not pragmatic reasons. And so I think at the moment we live in an age in which we're so divided that board games can't fucking do anything. A board is not wide enough to stretch along that divide.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I mean, in Germany, I feel it's nowhere close to that, but I do feel that underlying friction is there as well. It's why I believe that this friction, this division, it isn't new. It just hasn't really drawn much attention to it. I mean, again, political history of Germany for those who are interested in it. It's probably why you're listening to a board gaming podcast. But the way sort of the welfare state has changed in the last 15 years in Germany is fundamental. It has become less of a let's help those who can't find a job, and more of a let's punish those who aren't willing to take any job they can get, to sort of sell themselves undervalued just so they have the privilege of working, stuff like that. It has become much more punitive, far less supportive. Just the general conceptual idea of why the welfare state exists has changed. And this is a cultural shift that happened, that was always there, but it was sort of made manifest 15 years ago or so. And we're still feeling sort of the aftershocks are still with us here in Germany. I think it's not going to erupt, I hope, anytime soon, but it's definitely an issue.
And this is why board games still are so far behind more established art forms, right?
Yeah.
Behind novels, behind films. board games have not yet had its I, Daniel Blake.
But yeah, kind of. Yes, I agree with you in general, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I don't know of many games that tackle socio-political issues.
Well, this is the point, right?
Archipelago, interestingly enough, does. I remember playing Archipelago and going, this is basically taking the piss out of the, supply and demand structure of, workers. Right? The more people you sort of chase away from from their homes as you colonize the island, the more there are, the cheaper you can buy them. And it's mechanically, it's so clever. And you go, and once you realize these are people there, these are indigenous population that you're chasing away, that you're taking away their ways of life, and you go, man, that's cynical, that's brutal, that's evil. Oh, and that's what we're doing.
All right, Georgios, I'm sorry. This conversation was lovely. I'm still a little bit tired, and I've got to drain the rest of the fluid.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that the door just opened and Janine came home?
Also, I'm a little bit randy, Georgios. I'm not going to lie to you. And I don't mind having Tory genitals. I like to have a left-wing conscience and a right-wing sexual proclivity, Georgios, because they're perverts, and that's loads of fun. And let me tell you, I have opened Janine's eyes to the possibilities of unpeeled oranges in the last couple of weeks, Georgie. I'm not going to lie to you.
I do need a drink.
Right now, I've got a bloody tent pole under this duvet. Get out of my house. Say goodnight, Georgios.
I'm just going to take all the bottles of whiskey you have. Is that fine?
I'm Nick Mariner, and this is the Board Game Professor. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's good to be on the Perfect Information Podcast again. I'm happy to be with us this week because I am doing something that I've been wanting to do for a while, which is address the issue of ethics in board games. I really like doing this sort of off-the-cuff, lecture series style podcast. So I'm going to keep doing this until someone tells me to stop. But ethics in board games seems like an interesting topic. Ethics and board games seems like an interesting topic. The idea of what is the general principle that guides us as we play board games on what's right and wrong, what should we do, and what shouldn't we do? And are there certain types of games or game themes that maybe we should play or employ in our designs and maybe we shouldn't? I know ethics seems like maybe a strange thing in modern times. The idea that maybe we should behave rightly or wrongly in a world where it seems like behaving wrongly gets you as far as humanly possible. But this is what I'd like to talk about. And I think it's going to take 2 episodes because I'd like to talk about one game this week and then talk in a more general sense next episode. And there's a game that's made me think about this idea of ethics. What's right and wrong? What maybe should we do or shouldn't we do? And I've been thinking about it for quite a while. So I'm excited to finally talk about it. That game is the Manhattan Project. Now, I haven't gotten to play the Manhattan Project Energy Empire, which was a lot of people's favorite game last year. And it looks terrific. I don't mean to not speak of it at all. If you've played it and love it, I hope to join you eventually. But I'm talking about the original project, the original game Manhattan Project. That is a game, if you've ever played Manhattan Project, I think it's terrific, in a lot of ways, but I share the similar frustration that a lot of people do in a lot of other ways. But essentially, you are a part of a team, a nation, who is building an atomic bomb. Your job is to develop most efficiently atomic bomb technology, and what makes the game unique, what I love about the game is the worker placement mechanic within it, where you actually have different kinds of workers. So different actions require different workers. Some actions require engineer workers. some actions require scientist workers, and some actions require a combination or just generic workers. And I find that component of Manhattan Project to be the most compelling part of the system. Making sure that you have the right kind of workers at the right time is it's really cool. It's difficult. It's engaging, and it's a fun game. Now there also is an element of espionage and sabotage, where you can muddle with other players and what their plans are, and that tends to be where people, I think, gripe the most about Manhattan Project is it can get a little mean if you want to play it mean. I don't like to play it that way, but others, but you certainly can, and that ruins the fun for a lot of people. But that's what I find most interesting about the game, is that it's a fun worker placement game, but the complaint about it tends to be that it can be sort of mean strategy wise, not the fact that what you're doing is playing a game about building an atomic bomb. And it's made me think about more so than like the slave cards in Five Tribes, or some of these other hot button issues. It's been making me think about this issue of ethics, and ethics in the philosophical sense of the capital G, good. What is good in the world, and how do you pursue it? There are essentially two branches of philosophy that modern philosophers and moralists or ethicists, whatever word you choose to use, pursue. That's deontology and teleology, or more generally, or more specifically, deontology and utilitarianism. The great deontologist, the one you'll hear quoted the most, is a guy by the name of Immanuel Kant, Kant. And he ascribed to or promoted a theory of ethics, which was this deontology idea, which essentially claimed that there were what was considered good and what was considered bad pertained to some already determined virtue or determination of what would always be good and what would always be good. An a priori consideration of what is moral and what is immoral. And every decision needed to be focused through that lens. And most importantly, Kant said, or talked about that, his focus was generalization. If you could generalize your decision across all situations and all peoples, it was a good decision. If you could not, then it was bad. So if you, even if something seemed good now, if you could not say this is good in all cases, then it's probably a bad thing. It's a universally good thing. And that is a deontology idea, the essential idea that there is a moral set that rests above and outside all decisions, and then those decisions are to be made within that. And now the opposite, or the other major branch of ethics philosophy is teleology, or a lot of times the utilitarians, people like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. And their essential idea was that good and bad is focused on results. Good and bad is focused on the effect decisions have. So that, if it's not necessarily all decisions are made in context, and whatever the good of society is essentially the end goal. And if you make a decision that benefits all or benefits most, then that is inherently a good decision. And this sort of a priori preconsideration that's already been made is unnecessary, because you have to focus on things as they are. Now, why on earth am I talking about this? Because we're talking about board games. When I used to teach, I was going to say teach, but it's been a long time. When I used to teach this concept to students, my favorite example to demonstrate the difference between these two things was the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan, that the U.S. did on Japan at the end of World War II. There are two ways to sort of consider the ethics of that, because we've been debating the ethics of that idea for a very long time. For 70 years or however long it's been. Should we or shouldn't we have? And the conversation around that decision tends to take one of those two approaches in considering a good or bad. Now, if you are someone like a deontologist, if you're someone like a Kant, and let's say that you have this sort of consideration ahead of time, your a priori morality is taking a life is bad. In all cases, the taking of a life is bad. If that's your consideration, you're going to be against things like the death penalty. You're going to be against things like, I don't know, maybe even like abortion, but that's getting into a whole theology idea. But you'll certainly be against war. You'll certainly be against things in which people take the lives of other people. And if that is your a priori consideration, your established morality, then you are going to be opposed to the use of an atomic bomb. You're going to look at that event in history and say that was a loss of many, many lives unnecessarily, because taking lives on purpose is wrong. Now, a lot of the justification that historians have given, certainly the justification of my grandfather's generation, my grandfather specifically in conversation, looked a little bit more like the example of the utilitarians, which is to say, we dropped a bomb, a lot of people died, but it stopped the war. It ended World War II in the Pacific specifically. It prevented what was eventually going to be an invasion of Japan by Allied forces, which military experts at the time were calculating could cost potentially 1 million lives, and that's Allied soldier lives, not to say Japanese lives as well. And they would justify that the dropping of bombs was a moral good because it stopped a war from continuing, not because it took those lives in particular. And that is an extremely utilitarian approach to ethics. It is naming something that was one of the most horrific losses of life in the history of humanity. The only time, thankfully, that anybody has ever used a weapon like that. And it names it as a moral good because it ended a war. Not because it was an act of war, because it ended a war. Now, that is historically complicated. You can teach an entire class on that subject, but it's a good example of the two. Your naming of the morality of that moment is going to sort of help you figure out which side of that theory of ethics you're on, the deontologists or the utilitarians or the teleologists, which is, was it bad because killing's always bad because that kind of action's always bad, or was it good because the results were more positive than the potential alternative? And so this is why I want to talk about Manhattan Project. And I want to talk about ethics in board games. Because what I find interesting is that my Manhattan Project doesn't give you a choice. It chooses a theme in which you don't actually get to choose your ethics. To the very act of playing the game is to already have determined that you're fine with the idea of creating an atomic bomb that is eventually going to be used. You don't have to sit through the sort of horror of the use of that atomic bomb, but you are making a game out of the act of making the atomic bomb. And so what you're already, when you're playing that game, you're sort of already assuming, an inherent comfort with what you're doing. You are doing a lot of what like Oppenheimer and his crew were doing when they designed the bomb, which is maybe this is ethically uncomfortable. Maybe this isn't what science is supposed to do, but this is what we've been asked to do. And, we are going to end the war. And this is what Paul Tibbets, who dropped the bomb, he had the same idea, which is maybe all of this is pretty murky territory, but, we're all doing it in the effort of ending this war that we're all ready to see end. And certainly so this isn't done to us. And I love thinking about that when I think about Manhattan Project, that it is very utilitarian in its ethics, which is the goal of the game is to win. The goal of that game is to win the game. The goal of that game is not to make you consider whether or not you should be doing what you're doing. If at any moment you decide, I'm probably just not going to make a bomb, you're going to lose the game. You're going to lose that game. And I find that interesting that I have been racking my brain for the last 2 weeks trying to think, is there an example of a game that does the, Kantian ethics, makes you think about what's right and wrong and you choose all decisions through that. And to be completely honest, I can't think of one. I'd love to hear if anybody can. Most board games are utilitarian in their aspect, which is the goal of the game is positive results to win. But since I'm running out of time, running way over time, by the way, there is a third version of ethics that exists, which is going to be the next episode. And that version of ethics is given to us by our good friend Friedrich Nietzsche, who is to say, all of this is bullshit. The only thing that matters in ethics is power. To achieve virtue through gaining more power is the only way you can determine what's good and bad, because what's good and bad is never universal. And that is what we're going to be talking about next week, because I actually believe that is a more appropriate version of what we do when we play board games. It's not any sort of, we don't have this ethical dilemma. But that's what I want to get us talking about this week is ethics in board games. Why do we make the decisions we make? Why do we play the themes we play? And why don't we stop short at, a theme that might seem, potentially, troublesome or complicated, like atomic bombs, like slaves, etc. And I think there are reasons for it. Part of it is this ethical consideration that we don't have games that force us into a priori morality. Our games are all about utilitarianism. Our games are all about winning. Okay, that's it. I'm way over time. Happy to be back. I will see you all on the next episode, and we're going to talk about Nietzsche, and that's going to get super bleak. I'm Nick Mariner on Twitter @TheGoodMariner. Thanks for listening.
It's crass, unsophisticated, and emotionally manipulative.
It's this week's review.
Okay, the time is 4 p.m. I am now opening item number 815-16X23R42. It is a rectangular cardboard box with writing and what appears to be drawings on it. It is light. Shaking it suggests that there are loose items inside it. I am now opening the box. I am wearing protective gloves and the aluminium jockstrap as required. I can now confirm there are items within the box. They appear to be 2 decks of cards in color, a black and white booklet with some passages in color, a cardboard wheel with markings on it, as well as an opening through which a number can be seen. There's also a second booklet fully in color. It appears to be a manual in some obscure dead language, English or some such. Upon further inspection, I do not find a game in here. What do you mean, how do I know? Look at it. It's just a bunch of puzzles. Yes, of course, I've looked under the inlay. Nothing. You think the booklets contain the game? Well, it's possible, I suppose. If you squint your eyes and tilt your head a bit, then yes, scoring points by beating a certain time might qualify as a game. Preliminary conclusion. Exit the game, the secret lab appears to be a bunch of puzzles in a box with not a lot of game to it.
Yeah, skip to the end.
It's the one sentence review.
I can't escape from a room of my own mental construction. And that room is filled with frustration instead of enjoyment and boredom instead of engagement. But if I do eventually break out, I will still end up feeling queasy.
No, seriously. It's a bunch of puzzles in a box with not a lot of game to it.
Georgios? Ooh, what's that in the corner of the room?
I don't know, but it's eating peanuts with its nose.
Alright, so the elephant in the room, Georgios.
Yes, it is small. It is just one, and that's part of the problem.
And temporary.
And very temporary.
A very
yes.
small, singular, temporary elephant.
It is, yes.
Now, a number of these games have come out over the last few years. You know,
Right.
You've got the legacy games, you've got Time Stories,
Right,
you've
okay.
got Unlock from Space Cowboys, and now you've got Exit from Cosmos.
Well, there's also Escape from Stargazer Manor, which I've played, but yeah, basically, yeah.
So these are games that are just one-offs. You can't replay them after you've played them. Once the secrets have been given away, then they no longer have any enjoyment because it's just a parade.
Well,
Is this okay in this game?
Yeah, I would differentiate between, the one-off nature of a lot of these games. I think Pandemic has a one-off nature because part of the appeal is revealing what's in the boxes. And once you've revealed all the boxes, or once you've finished the run of the game, the 12 months, there's no reason to play again, basically. Right. Time Stories, you have single scenarios that you play through, usually a bunch of times until you get to the end. And then, again, there's no appeal to playing them again because you know what you need to do.
Right.
A game like Unlock, well, I haven't played Unlock, but I've played, like I said, Escape from Stargazer Manor, whatever it's called.
No, we're playing Escape from the Lab.
All right, yeah, but I've played another game. That was also a typical escape game. And again, in this case, once you've played it to completion, you know the puzzles, you've solved the puzzles, and there's no game left to play. There's nothing else to do. In Exit, the same thing applies. And then once you've played it, once you've solved the puzzles, you can't really play it again, but it gets an added wrinkle, which is, let's say, controversial in that solving these puzzles leads to destroying or at least drawing on changing the components.
Cutting up, removing bits.
Exactly. And basically you can't reset the game in any way. Once you started playing it, once you start playing it, you can sort of stop in the middle of the game and do something else, but you can't go back again.
I have a big issue with this. And when we played it was the one thing that totally obscured my vision and left me unable to think about this game with anything other than faint disgust.
Right.
And that sounds an outrageous statement, but really I got to the end of the game and I just thought, this is fucking disgusting. This is decadent.
Yeah.
And I don't care that the game is cheap. The sheer waste in this game I have an issue with, right? Mm-hmm. So the game is constructed in a way where you have a lot of puzzles.
Yeah, a dozen or so.
And a lot of these puzzles require you, and this is giving nothing away, they require you to cut up elements. They even have little dotted lines, so I'm not giving anything away. Wow. They require you to draw on things. They make it's essentially that legacy aspect that it's unusable after you've done it. And the biggest egregious thing I found in this game is you have hint cards that help you, that help you with the puzzles. And what these are is a deck of cards, a deck of like 30 cards.
Yeah, 3 cards per puzzle.
3 cards per puzzle. And the fact is, you may only use the hints for 2 puzzles, 3 puzzles. So what you have is you have this whole deck of cards that you don't even use in the game. And after the game is over, they are completely useless.
What do you mean you only get to use 2 or 3 of them?
No, you may only take hints on a certain number of the puzzles, right?
Really?
Yeah. No, I don't mean may as you're allowed to, but while you play the game, you might only need to look at hints on certain amounts of puzzles, right? So you have a lot of cards that you may not even ever look at during the play of the game. And then once the game is over, these cards are useless. Mm-hmm. This is an utter waste of resource, of paper, in an age where we constantly talk about driving our planet off a cliff through overconsumption. And I don't care. And the thing is, people could say, well, it's only $12. Regardless of that, it is chock full of things that take production, that take transport, that are never going to be used. And I find that absolutely deplorable. And I can't get over it. And am I wrong here?
I think you're feeling this far deeper than I do. I agree with your general idea that yes, it is wasteful. It is definitely wasteful, and I also agree with that. It's not. I don't disagree with it because of the price I would pay to get a copy of this game. I disagree with it for the same reason, because basically I'm playing this game. I'm using 8, 12 cards, maybe the booklets, whatever else is in there once, and then I throw it away. It will take somewhere between an hour to 3 hours, depending on how stupid you are. And we were profoundly stupid. Let's be honest here. So we apparently got a lot out of the game because we spent a lot of time with it. But yes, then you throw it away. And while I'm not quite as outraged by it as you are, I don't understand the logic behind it. I don't understand the need behind it. It seems odd.
I really felt queasy. I felt queasy at the end of the game that I had, because when you set up the game, you separate all of these cards out into separate piles for each puzzle that they're giving you clues to solve. And I just looked at this array of cards that I hadn't used, that I hadn't even flipped over, because you can't flip over and look at them, because that's the nature of them. You don't want to, pride, you want to solve the puzzle, so you don't even want to look at them. And this just a whole array of things that were utterly useless and have no further use. What can I do with these now, apart from put them in the recycling bin? It's the only way I can kind of feel any sort of amelioration at the guilt of having this done. And so the big issue I have with these games is they've decided to go down a route, probably because of Pandemic Legacy's success. They've gone down a route of unresetability.
Right.
And later we'll come into why I think design-wise that's a little bit iffy. But the elephant in the room here for me is that this game is maliciously wasteful. And I think it's a terrible example to set in a world in which conservation has to be our primary goal going forward.
Yeah, I'm going to be far more base and less idealistic. From pure gamer perspective, you have to imagine it like this. You buy a game, 2/3, 3/4 of the components maybe, you never touch. It's literally one of the reasons, and I'm actually using it correctly this time. It's literally one of the reasons why I held back on getting my own copy of Seven Wonders, because I thought, there's some games I will never use, there's some cards I will never use. I never have 7 players at my gaming table. And I'm quite sure that until the day that I will get rid of this game, I may have used the 7-player cards once. And it feels odd to pay for something, to own something that you're never going to use. It's not a big deal. I don't feel quite as invested into this issue as you are, but as a game, I feel like, what's the point? Why would you put that much stuff in it that you're not going to use? It just seems bewildering to me.
And while I find Time Story is cynical, and while I find it aesthetically, artistically bereft in many ways, Time Story doesn't leave me with this ethical queasiness in that, it's resettable. You can only play through it once, but you can pass it on to other people, and other people can have the experience.
You can sit in with a different group of friends
and watch them do it. Whereas this, it's just a whole raft of things that will never be used, that you just go from production to the bin with nothing in between. And that I find pretty quease-making.
So, what did you think of my interactive, candid photo montage?
Well, it was certainly an experience.
All right, Georgie, we played this together.
We did indeed.
And it might be my interpretation, I saw the enthusiasm leach out of the room as the second hand went around the clock. Did I misinterpret that?
No. For various reasons, we talked about this before we recorded this. I have had a lot of issues reviewing this or talking about this game because I feel that a lot of the criteria by which I would evaluate a game, in which I would critically look at what does this game do, what does it offer, what does it create, what does it make us do, I feel almost none of them apply to this. Like I said in the one sentence review, it's a bunch of puzzles in a box. There's no game to it. The only game, and you pointed that out to me, is the fact that you time how long it took you and how many clues you needed. That's the only game element. Everything else is just puzzles. So from a purely game perspective, I think I honestly don't know what to say about this. There's nothing there. Basically, you're just sitting together solving puzzles. Now, that said, I also have issues with the puzzles themselves because of the way they're created. I like puzzles. I think you can make an argument that a lot of these slightly more complex Eurogames appeal to the side of us that enjoys puzzling things out. These puzzles I felt frustrated by because it felt, and I've honed this metaphor, let's see if I can actually get it out of my mouth. It felt like somebody dropping a bunch of wooden pieces, some screws, and maybe some bolts, whatever, in front of you, and a torn up piece of an IKEA instruction manual. And they don't tell you what to do. They don't tell you what you're going to end up with. They just tell you, this is what you have 10 minutes, and you try to figure something out, and sometimes it works and you feel very, very happy about this. Sometimes it doesn't, and then you get back to square one. And at no point did I feel that these puzzles were so much puzzles as people just not telling you what to do. They're basically, the clues basically were really, really silly references and weird ways of, I don't know, I was just really
huge exercises in trial and error. Just trial and error your way through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you do feel I will not lie, you do for a moment feel very clever when you think of a weird way of combining the things you have and then they work, but at no point was the solution of any of these puzzles satisfying to me. At no point were these puzzles sort of, like I remember when I was younger, I used to love doing puzzles. At no point I thought, oh, and this taught me a new way of seeing things, taught me a new way of thinking about things. This basically made me realize certain connections that I wasn't aware before. There was none of that. It was basically, we're not going to tell you what to do, and we'll just give you we give you a phrase that's supposed to be a clue, and it generally isn't.
Well, this is the point, you see, and this is why I feel sort of qualified to talk about my experience in this, but I don't feel qualified to tell anyone listening to this whether they'll enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But this is not a thing I grok, and this is not a thing I enjoy. I think it actually bears kind of similarities to my issues with hidden movement games.
Right.
In that they don't give you hints, really, to help you solve things. They just say, here's some stuff, work it out.
Right, yeah.
They don't take you by the hand into it. There didn't seem to be any escalation in puzzle difficulty, for instance.
Right, yeah.
All the puzzles seem to be of a sort of similar difficulty, and the first one is as difficult as the last one, which seems to me like, okay, it doesn't seem like a thematic design. It doesn't seem like an idea of wanting to bring the game into cohesive whole. It's just, think of some puzzles, whack them in a box, and then we'll lay this thing over the top, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I find this very frustrating and not very enjoyable. And I found myself very quickly thinking, I just want to get a clue and get through this and get this done. Right. It seemed a chore to me rather than an enjoyable experience. And my problem is with that, is I know these kind of things aren't my bag. Mm-hmm. So what I can't say, hand on heart, is that it's poor and boring. Mm-hmm. What I can say is I found it poor and boring.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have no such qualms about making decisions over other people. But yeah, like I said, I think I really don't think they're good puzzles. I think the solutions are cleverer than the puzzles themselves. I think the solutions to the puzzles are, this is a fun idea. This is a nice way of putting things together. But the way that they're laid out is not interesting. It's like I said, it's just omission. And as you said, trial and error. There's no deduction. There's no figuring out logical, the ways that things logically work together.
Well, there's no real satisfaction at getting a big fucking 2 great handfuls of shit, throwing them at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? Any fucker can do that eventually. You know what I mean?
But again, yes, I agree with that. But it really comes down to whether you like the rush of trying something out and seeing it works and getting this validation from the game that, yes, you figured things out the way we wanted you to figure them out. Which reminds me, a unique situation happened in our game. We realized, I think that was the final puzzle actually, when we realized it was unsolvable because we somehow managed to skip a puzzle. And you have to keep in mind, and now I'm slowly moving to design.
Well, let's move on to design.
Let's do that.
So what do you get if you mix together sexual frustration, hatred of the world, and congenital stomach problems?
That's basically you.
That's design.
So, design. Basically, the game is linear. It's purely linear, and we somehow managed to skip a step.
And what he means by linear is, because it's not resettable, it goes from one puzzle to the next puzzle to the next puzzle to the next puzzle. It's not like you can solve puzzle 1, then puzzle 4. If you skip over puzzle 2, it destroys the rest of the game.
Which is what happened with us, but luckily it happened in the second to last. We skipped the second to last puzzle.
Yeah, so basically what happened, one of the guys at the table came up with this theory of how to solve the puzzle. That clearly wasn't the way to solve the puzzle.
Apparently wasn't, no.
But through fluke, it worked, and it led us on. But what it did was skip over a number of intermediate steps. So when we came to the last puzzle, we hadn't got the requisite resources, so we had to fudge it to access the last puzzle, right?
Exactly. Yeah, to give you a bit of a more coherent idea, there's a 2-step solution check in these games. And that first you come up with a number, and then you look through a deck of cards for exactly that number. Then you flip the card around, and then it usually has a number of images on it. And it asks you, where is the symbol located there of the puzzle you're solving right now? So you look for the symbol that of the puzzle you're solving right now, and next to that symbol is another number and then you look for that number, and then you draw that card out of the deck, and that card tells you, yes, you are right. Now draw cards B and Q and F to start the next puzzle.
And that's the thing. And that is in there to stop what happened to us happening, right? Except it didn't stop what happened to us happening, which means as a design idea, it fundamentally breaks the game.
Yeah. And we were lucky, like I said 4 times now. It was the last puzzle, so when we fudged it, we didn't completely destroy the game, which is the last puzzle where we had to sort of draw out the right cards to figure it out, and went over very quickly after that. But I think this was really the biggest, weirdest moment of the game, in that I couldn't imagine the likelihood of something like that happening. And then I thought it would be so easy to avoid such a thing happening by just tying the numbers that you print on the card, on the pictures card, only to dead ends, to cards that say, no, you're wrong, try again, as opposed to having more than one of these numbers lead you to the next puzzle. I don't know what the thinking was behind that, considering that, as you said, it's a linear game. Once you skip something, you break it. You have to fudge it, you have to cheat, you have to sort of reveal
around. Cards you haven't revealed, so you feel like a bit of a dickhead saying, we've just got to turn this one over now. I mean, I said we should just turn one over, and you were like, I'm not keen on it. I said, well, we can't do anything bloody else. We have to.
Yeah.
We can't go back, because all the shit that we've got in previous puzzles has been drawn on and ripped and all of this sort of stuff. And I think this idea of making it legacy, and I can only see it as a reason to cash in on the current legacy phase, because people enjoy, and I've used this word a lot today, but the transgression of writing on pieces and tearing them up and cutting things up. People enjoy that, and so I guess that's why they did it, but it breaks the game.
To be fair, though, it is enjoyable. It is fun. It's a nice suggestion. And if the game was consciously made with that in mind and would actually support the gameplay itself, would actually support that and give you something for what you do, then I could see the point I can see the point in it. But in this case, I agree with you. It's wasteful. But there's another thing that I want to point out negatively, unfortunately, about this game. And this is something you alluded to earlier. The puzzles have no coherency within them. There's no story, there's no background, there's no setting. And compared to this other exit game I've played, I'm using the name off the top of my head, sort of vaguely using a translation, because I only just now thought of actually looking up the proper name. But there's this other exit game, Escape from Something Manor. The puzzles in that game are ridiculously easy. I mean, we were through it in 20 minutes or so. Right. It's very much aimed at kids, at families, at younger people, even if it doesn't look like it, especially because the story is pretty dark. But it has a story. Basically, you go into this manor, you do the first puzzle, and then you reveal certain background information about what happened here. And then you do the next puzzle, and you learn more about the history, and you learn more about what happened and why the manor is such weird things are happening there. And at the end of the game, you have actually multiple solutions depending on how things play out. You might end up with a solution where everything goes well, where you rescue everyone. You might end up in a solution where some people may die, or maybe everyone dies. Even though the puzzles were, like I said, ridiculously easy, it felt more of a game. It felt like more of a story to it. It felt like there was more to the game than just the puzzles, and Exit doesn't do that.
There is zero story in this game.
Yeah.
Now, the designers, the developers may come back to me and say, no, this is not how it was. But, as I said before, it seems very clear to me they came up with a load of puzzles, or threw them in a box and put a very, very flimsy framing mechanic over the top.
With a bunch of pop culture references in the booklet. Yeah.
And the big issue is, for me, as I say, and so that's one big problem I had, is that there isn't a story. Information, narrative isn't revealed. It's just, you've solved this puzzle, move on to this puzzle. And then, as I said before, there's no escalation in this. All the puzzles are of similar difficulty, so you don't feel like, I'm getting towards the end and it's really close now and I'm gonna, if we don't get this, and there's no possibility of death, there's just possibility of doing it slow. There's no tension. And that's a problem for me.
Right.
There's no feeling that you can lose unless you do what we do and fuck up the game because of the way it's designed. There's no tension there. All there is just this flabby procession from one lateral thinking process to another lateral thinking process. And if that's not your bag, you're going to be bored from minute 1 to minute whatever. And if that's not your bag, minute whatever is going to be a lot bloody bigger than if it is your bag. And so it's utterly self-defeating. And so I think this seems to me, now I may be utterly wrong here, it seems to me cynical. It seems to me like we want to cash in on this current escape room thing. So let's get some people in to design some puzzles and we'll do it and we'll ship them out quick and we'll whack a few legacy things in there. And so we'll shift a load of stuff and it'll be great. And the problem is, it seems to me to be cobbled together far too quickly, and it doesn't have that next stage of coherency that it would need for me to find it engaging.
Well, also now this is fairly important because to a certain extent we're talking from a place of ignorance. Neither of us have actually been in proper escape rooms. I mean, I've played a lot of the things that have influenced escape rooms and inspired escape rooms, starting from like the Flash games like 10 years ago, I think so, or even though the point and click adventures of yesteryear. I've played those. I like those. I like these puzzles. I enjoy these puzzles, and I like the revealing narrative. Quick tangent here. I actually heard this theory going around about role-playing gamers coming down on basically some role players coming down on two sides of the computer game genre. If you were into adventure games, point and click adventure games, you were into the story, and therefore if you played a role-playing game, you were into the story and not the conflicts, not the problems that you engaged. Whereas another part of computer gamers were more into conflict, into strategy, into solving problems of beating conflicts, and those people were into other aspects of role-playing games. And I feel this kind of plays into this game as well, and that it focuses only on one aspect of the escape room experience, as far as I've understood it, keeping in mind that I haven't actually been to one. But as far as I know from people I've talked to, it's not just the puzzles. It's the thing that makes escape rooms so great. It's not just the puzzles. It's the interactivity. It's the fact that how you deal with people, how you have narrative, even if it's flimsy unfolding, how you sort of have this experience of being locked in this room and everything could be something, could be ambience, but it also could be meaningful, things changing, things escalating. There are a lot of aspects that make up this experience, as I'm told, and of all these aspects, only the puzzles remain in Exit.
And so you have what some people may say is the core, but it's just the core, and frankly, who wants to eat the core of an apple?
Playing this made me want to play.
So Exit made you want to play what? Georgios Paniogatidis.
Well, that's... man... You're so lucky I do not have a lawyer. It made me want to play something, I think, which is very, very obvious. If you think about what I've said, it made me want to play Thimbleweed Park.
Right. What's Thimbleweed Park, Georgios?
It is a point-and-click adventure, sort of semi-nostalgic from Ron Gilbert, one of the minds behind The Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. And it's basically, it goes back to the which I have now declared the origin of these escape rooms, basically. One of the very, very vague, distant influences of those games. And that I want puzzles. I want to sit down and puzzle things out. I want to think about it. I want to have the story unfold. I want to laugh at the jokes. I want to sort of marvel at the visuals because they're, again, 256 color VGA type graphics looking fantastic. Maybe probably more colors even. I want to sort of engage, sort of figure things out, have all these elements in disparate places and trying to figure out how to combine them to solve this riddle, to open this door, to get the key out of the cage and stuff like that. I like these puzzles. I enjoy them. And I never feel that in those games, the puzzles are only puzzles by nature of not telling me what I need to know. They're only puzzles because I haven't seen a connection that I should have seen. And figuring out how these things work is great fun. And it's exactly the kind of fun that I was more or less expecting from Exit, and I was disappointed to not get.
Yeah, for me, and this is kind of obvious, I guess, but Exit made me want to know whether this kind of thing is really my bag. And the only way I can sort that out is by going to an escape room myself. And there are about 20 in Berlin, and I was invited to one, and I didn't go, and I should have gone, because I wonder if Exit is just an anemic core of an experience that adds so many more aspects to it, or whether, for me, the whole escape room thing is just not something I'm into and not something I can engage with. So, Georgie.
Yes.
Binny. Should people, that is a version of my name.
It is, yeah.
Georgie.
Binny.
Should people go out and buy Exit?
Well, after great praises, I would definitely say no. No. As a game, I think it fails. As a collection of puzzles, I think my mother used to, I think she still does, used to buy these booklets, these Greek magazines full of crosswords and other type of puzzles once a month, I think, for a few euros. 40, 60, 80 pages full of them, and they are far cheaper than this. They're also only usable once. But
you use them, right?
But you actually use them, yeah. And it's your choice whether you want to use them or not. It's not like, well, you went all the way to page 44 and every puzzle you haven't solved up to page 44, well, it's gone now. You can't use it anymore. I think it's a much better investment of time to get one of those magazines, or play basically any other game you can play with other people that involves some kind of puzzle aspect. I mean, some co-op games effectively are puzzle games. Get one of those. I think Exit, even though it's cheap and even though it's a craze right now to sort of rip things up, and even though it's fun to rip things up, I don't think it's worth it.
I think Exit is, for me, it's a clusterfuck of so many things that I don't like.
You shouldn't say cluster.
It's a fuck of so many things I don't like. I don't think the puzzles are engaging. They don't form any sort of narrative. It is very clear the process that went into making the game. It seems to me a cynical attempt to cash in on a current fad, and also it leaves me feeling absolutely queasy at the sheer waste of it. Of all of the games we've reviewed on this podcast up until the point, this is the one I feel worst about. This is the one that I'm angriest at, and this is the one I would recommend you not only not to buy, but to actively boycott, because this is a symptom of our age that I find absolutely deplorable. Again, we find ourselves sat across the table, Georgios, at the culmination of a board game madrigal that many find not only enjoyable, but also erotique in the groin way.
Your obsession with sexualizing this podcast is starting to make me nervous.
Haven't you heard about what they say, Georgios? Sex sells.
No, they said sex is getting sold and this is bad.
No, sex sells. I spoke to this bloke who sells sex on the corner.
Really? How much?
Like in a box.
All right.
50p or something?
You have to pee 50 times.
That's right.
Well, it's nonsense.
Because that's quite sexy. Urine is quite sexy, isn't it, Georgios?
Well, you are in Germany, to be fair.
It's called a golden shower because it's so valuable to your sexual health. How can they contact us, Georgie?
Anyway, yes, they can. People who are still listening to this podcast for some inexplicable reason can contact us on or even at infoperfected@gmail.com. You can look at our website, infoperfected.com. We used to have more reviews more regularly. We've slowed down a bit because A, nobody reads them, but we still like to write them. They can also go to our guild, which is on Board Game Geek, guild number 2348. It's a Guild of Perfect Information. We're also on Facebook, the Perfect Information Podcast. We are on Instagram, Perfect Information. We are on Twitter, Info Perfected and Perfected Info. One of us is one of each.
Indeed. Guess which one?
Yeah, it's fairly easy.
Yes, it is.
And what else do we have? I think that's basically it. If for some reason you want to listen to us on YouTube, you can do that.
Yeah, no one does, but you can. You can go onto YouTube and listen to our show.
I think there were at least 6 Russian bots who listened to an episode once.
And if you want to help the show, we have a support button on the website. You can come, throw us a couple of quid, helps pay for our hosting, helps us get games to review. If you're a game publisher who wishes to...
Publish? No, wait.
Who wishes to have your game considered by us...
Well, to be fair, ripped to pieces by us if for some reason we don't like it.
That's always a risk, Georgie.
Yeah, basically.
Then contact us at infoperfected@gmail.com. And we keep promising this, but it is almost done now. The Patreon will be up and running within the next 2 weeks. And
while you're not a good liar, but
there'll be a great video and there'll be lots of perks. There will be a Patreon. We'll get it done. And then you can help us through Patreon.
Yes. No, yeah, exactly. Let me just amend small details. Yes, we're working on it. Yes, we really want to do it. We really want to make it work, and we really want to do a video, and we will do a video. I'm not quite sold on the deadline you've set, but other than that, I 100% agree with you.
Say goodnight, Georgios.
No, I'm going to work on the Patreon.